Time for World Edition. And of course, we've got a lot of things going on in the world, and we've got a very special guest as well. But let me just give you a rundown of some of the things happening in the world, and then we'll bring our special guest. We'll be talking about a very significant issue and all along those lines. But President Biden says the U.S. will respond to drone attacks that killed 3 Americans. And of course, there's the widening Mid-East crisis as Iran suggests it doesn't want a war after the U.S. warning over the drone attacks. And Ukraine and Russia have completed their first prisoner swap since a plane crash and all along those lines. So that is something that is still going on in the world. And of course, French farmers are still doing their protesting, and that definitely has France's government in a bind. So that is something that we are seeing in the news and among the news and all in that way. An armed West Bank settler is widening their campaign against the Palestinians. So definitely a lot is going on in there. And a rock band critical of Putin is detained in Thailand, fearful of deportation to Russia. So there are some people that are even being dissidents there in Russia as well. And like I said, they've been detained and they are fearful of what could happen. Israeli intelligence has prompted the U.S. to quickly cut Gaza aid funding. So that is something else that we are seeing in the news and among the news items and all along those lines. And definitely it looks like even in Myanmar, there's another conflict that is going on. And they're saying that far from Ukraine and Gaza, another war just killed 50,000 people. And that is the war over there in Myanmar. And Carter Hart, one of the players told to surrender in a sexual um, assault investigation. So we are seeing that going on that's actually involving some news out of Canada and everything in that way. And in Thailand, a popular reformist party move forward could be dissolved after the court loss and all in that kind of situation. And we'll get to a couple of U.S. news stories, and then I've got a very special guest that I'll be bringing in, and he'll be talking about a very significant issue that a lot of people don't pay attention to. And I was startled by some of the figures that I heard and all along those lines. But a man was arrested after claiming that he was involved in a very brutal decapitation over there in the area and all along those lines. And that was actually in Pennsylvania. So that was one of those YouTube moments. And Fannie Willis will not have to testify Wednesday in a special prosecutor's divorce case. And we do know that Fannie Willis has been involved in one of the Trump incidences or Trump charges as well. And House Republicans are voting to advance efforts to impeach DHS Secretary Mayorkas. So that is something else that we are seeing and all along those lines. So Trump says he is interviewing attorneys for an E. Jean Carroll appeal. And E. Jean Carroll takes heat for a bizarre Meadow interview Maddow interview that she did, spending about where she was bragging about spending Trump's money, and definitely that is something going on. And amid pressure to visit, Biden is to head to East Palestine 1 year after a train derailment. And of course, as I think we mentioned yesterday, Cori Bush is under investigation by the DOJ. But one thing we don't oftentimes talk about, and it's definitely a issue that is in society, and it's one that a lot of people have been paying attention to and have been trying to figure out what is going on in that space and along those lines, is the issue of homelessness and of particularly our homeless youth. And I was startled when I heard some of these figures. So I'm going to bring in my special guest and what he's got to say about this and all along those lines. But I've got Jeffrey Sitkoff, who is with Doors of Change and all along those lines. So he has definitely been involved in this and has got a number of celebrities that have been coming in. I think he's out of California, out of San Diego, but I've heard that there was something like 4.5 million or something like that homeless youth right here in the North America and in the United States. So definitely that is something that a lot of people don't always think about. And I know we've got some right here in North Carolina. Of course, y'all have got some there in California and a number of other places as well. So if you'll share a little bit about what you are doing, you've got a major event going on and you've definitely raised some major celebrities that are helping you in this effort and all along those lines. So Jeffrey, if you'll share a little bit about what this Doors of Change initiative is and what you've got going on in that space, I'm sure our folks would love to hear that and love to hear more about what's happening in that regards.
Thank you. Doors of Change is a 501c3 organization, nonprofit organization that for the last 22 years has helped homeless youth get off the streets and into self-sufficiency. There's 4.2 million youth that is homeless in America today. That's throughout all the United States. And, about 40% of those LGBTQ youth that are on the streets are homeless because they tell their parents and they kick them out of the house just by telling their parents that they're gay. And that's 40% of the 4.2 million are LGBTQ plus. The other 60% come from such dysfunctional families that their parents are drug addicts, alcoholics, they're mentally ill, and it's so dysfunctional in their house, it's not safe for the youth to be there, and so they go on the streets. And once they get on the streets, it's very difficult to get out because they don't trust anybody.
Yeah, definitely. Now, how did you get involved in this issue, and how did you bring the celebrities into it as well? Because I did see that you even got uh, Lucy Arnaz and some other people that are definitely well known involved in this struggle. But I was just wondering how you got involved, and also if you could talk about the importance of celebrities getting involved in these kinds of social issues, because I know that sometimes people are critical of that. I'm actually a big fan of celebrities taking their time and their resources to help very needed issues. But I just wondered how you got involved in this, and if you could share a little bit more about some of these statistics. And some of those statistics that you and Harlan sent me, I was quite startled by, and all along those lines. But if you can just tell me how you personally got involved and your own role in the entertainment world, and even in this particular organization that you are part of.
Sure. Well, number one, the reason I got involved is because I'm a physical therapist by profession. I had a successful practice for 18 years. I had a spinal cord injury, and I lost my profession. I couldn't do it anymore. And so I started thinking, what can I do to help? And it just coming back to helping youth. And I interviewed 100 nonprofit organizations. I didn't know there were homeless kids in our community. Most people don't even know there's homeless youth. You hear about the homeless vets. You hear about the families that are homeless, the adults that are homeless, but you rarely ever hear about the youth. And I went on outreach one night, and that night literally changed my life 22 and a half years ago. I saw what the kids had to deal with. I saw how they reacted to the youth. They befriended them, and eventually how the kids trusted them. And I said on the spot, I said, I've got to help more kids get off the streets. And that's been over 22 years now, and we've helped over 2,800 youth get safe housing and self-sufficiency over that time. I'm the founder and president of the organization. And doorsofchange.org is our website. So if someone is saying, I had no idea there were homeless kids, I'd like to help them, go to doorsofchange.org. You can see a lot of videos of the kids speaking. You can see the statistics that we have. And this is the real deal. We've helped over 10,000 youth, but over 2,800 to get actually into safe housing. And, the celebrities, how they got involved, I befriended Billy Joel 22 and a half years ago. He heard about our vision about getting kids off the streets, and he was touched. And he said, I want to help. And so we signed a keyboard. And that keyboard allowed us to increase a lot of media awareness and awareness in the community. We sold it for $36,000. So we raised quite a bit of money to help get kids off the streets. But within 3 months, he talked to Elton John after they were touring together, and Elton said, I'd like to get involved also. So having these two megastars endorse Doors of Change from the very beginning was a game changer for us. It allowed celebrities to trust what we were doing, because many people don't trust organizations. There's been so many organizations that have been taking advantage of people that they don't know who to trust today. But when you have Billy Joel and Elton John saying, this is a good organization, I'm behind this organization, it allowed many, many others to come on board. Bruce Springsteen, the Rolling Stones, Etta James, B.B. King, Tony Bennett, many, many others to sign memorabilia. And we've been able to fund a lot of our program because of the memorabilia that we've sold. And you can go to our website of doorsofchange.org if you're interested in getting maybe a nice memorabilia piece that that 100% of it is going to actually get kids off the streets.
Yep. Along those same lines and everything, you mentioned it. I know you've got a big event coming up soon and all along those lines, but I was just wondering if you could talk about the importance, because we talked about it here sometimes, of music and even the arts to helping these kids, because it does seem like it is very much a arts-based initiative as well, because a lot of these celebrities are in the arts, whether they are in theater or whether they are musicians. And I even saw some of the statistics that you had sent where the music was helping people get out of these very troubling situations. So I was wondering if you could talk about that as well.
Yes, we had an award-winning music and art program called Taking Music and Art to the Streets. We did it for 18 years, where we taught instruments, 7 instruments to homeless kids. They could earn instruments of their choice after coming 6 times. It was extremely successful. However, because of COVID, we had to close the program down. And we said, listen, we still got to help these youth. So we reinvented ourselves and we pivoted. And we started a program called Homeless Youth Advocacy Program, which, gave housing for youth. It gave medical care. It gave mental health services, clothes, food, etc. And we put out posters. I don't know if you can see this, but we had a very bright poster that we put up. Can you see that?
Yes, I can see that.
So we actually put these up around the city, everywhere, where they go to bathrooms, fast food restaurants, the library, because they go to the library to charge their phones to get free access on computers, etc. And the youth started calling us by the droves. And they started asking us, can I get a computer? Can I get a cell phone? etc. So by doing that, we responded very quickly. Our turnaround time was immediate many times, but up to like 20 minutes, we called them back. We were on the phone talking to other youth. And so because of the quick, immediate time that we got back to them, they realized that we were there to help them. And they started trusting us very quickly. And because of that, in the last 3 years alone, we pivoted and we've housed now 849 youth in the last 3 years alone by using this homeless youth advocacy program. And again, people can go to our website of doorsofchange.org to get this information and to see what we do. And if you're touched, people say, I want to help the homeless. I don't know what to do. If you can give a donation of any amount, it'll help us. We have a thing called the Angel Team, where the California Angels gave us trademarks. We trademarked the name Angel Team. They gave us permission because it had to do with only helping homeless youth. And for $11 a month, or $18 a month, or $30 a month, people can afford to make a donation of that amount because they don't even realize it's coming out of their paycheck. But if you have 500 people that make $18 a month, that's a significant amount of money coming in every month that we can put to hiring a case manager to work with these kids and helping them get off the streets.
Why do you think that there's been a spike? Because I know a lot of people have been concerned about the mental health of our youth, as well as what's going on with our youth, both during the pandemic and after the pandemic. But I have heard that there has been concerns around the notion of the mental health of our youth and everything, Jeffrey. So I was just wondering your take on that and why you think that this is a pertinent issue even in the year 2024. Because I've heard a lot of people that are concerned about the nature of our youth and what's going on with our youth. They're definitely glad to see our youth being active in certain political causes and doing some great things, but there's also some concern around the mental health of our young people. So I just wondering your take on that and why this is a major issue in the year 2024 and why there has been a spike in homelessness among our youth, in your opinion.
Well, in my opinion, when you see these youth are abused by their families, literally, they're raped, they're molested, they're verbally abused, they're physically abused, taken advantage of. That caused a lot of PTSD. That caused a lot of stress. And then when they go on the streets, it's even more. They get raped on the streets. They do survival sex in the streets to get money enough to eat. All this stuff adds to helping these youth. It gets these youth to be mentally have mental challenges, and that's why about 85% of our youth that are on the streets have mental illness of some degree, even if it's PTSD or depression. And so we think very strongly that we get them in for help so they can be seen by a psychiatrist and get evaluated whether they need meds initially to decrease the depression. Some of them are schizophrenic, but most of them are just deeply depressed and have such traumas in the home, and then even more traumas when they're on the streets, that they need mental health. And so we actually give them psychologists to actually work with them and help them with therapy so they can actually process this. And it really helps tremendously because unless you deal with the mental health aspect, many of these kids are going to fail. And so we have to get this right. And so that's why mental health is a big part of what Doors of Change does, referring them for mental health practices and specialists in this area so they can help them get a handle on this.
Do you think the schools and society in general are doing enough to reach out to our kids that are dealing with these issues and everything? Because I know that even I don't have any kids of my own, but I have two nephews, and I do know that sometimes kids will be diagnosed as being hyper or a number of other things, and they will sometimes be put on drugs like Ritalin and other things. And as I've oftentimes said on this show and other things, I don't know a non-hyper kid yet because kids are just naturally hyper. But I sometimes wonder if some of our pharmaceuticals and other things aren't depending too much on drugging our kids as well. But I was just wondering your take on that as one that is in this space and probably has some educator friends.
Well, we work specifically with what's called TAY youth, transitional age youth, ages 17 to 25. That age group is the most underserved of the entire homeless population. You know, you hear about the vets, you hear about the homeless adults, you hear about the homeless families. You rarely ever hear about the homeless youth. And so the 17 to 25-year-old transitional age youth, we call them the TAY youth, are not only the most underserved of the entire homeless population, because people think, they're adults, 17, 18 years old, they're adults. Well, they're really not adults because they have not been taught by their parents how to survive and how to, do things to be well in life. And so they really are younger than their age. And so we need to help them and give them the services that they need to be able to do that. As far as the Ritalin and stuff, I don't know about that. We specialize with 17 to 25-year-olds, and most of them are like seniors in high school or older. And however, that age group is the greatest potential chance of breaking the cycle of homelessness of any age group that deals with homelessness. The reason is because they're not on the streets that long. They're not so messed up with drugs, with alcohol, with mental illness. They've been on the streets for, say, 6 months or a year or 2 years, but not 10 years or 20 years, like you see the 30, 40, 50-year-olds that are on the streets. Because of that, if someone helps us help these youth, they'll have a greater chance of breaking the cycle of homelessness than any other age group.
And along those same lines and everything, I know one of the things I'm going to bring in Rick and Sasha, they may have some questions for you as well and everything. But one of the things that a lot of times people talk about, particularly among that age range and everything, is the notion of social media and how a lot of them are caught up in social media and all along those lines. So I was wondering your take on that, because a lot of people are also concerned about the nature of social media and how a lot of our youngsters, particularly those that are in that young adult age, are very much caught up in social media and wanted to keep up with the Joneses, for lack of a better term. But I was just wondering your thoughts around that, because I do know that that's an issue that has been brought up along with the issue of teenage and even young adult suicides and all along those lines because of some of the bullying that goes on. But I was just wondering your take on social media and what you're learning from your youth that are in that space.
Well, I know that, all the youth use social media, and again, we deal with only homeless kids, traditional age youth. I can't really comment about that because I'm not an expert in that other area, but I do know that a lot of the kids see us on social media, see about Doors of Change through our through Facebook, through Instagram, whatever, and contact us if they are homeless because they've heard about us through other youth that have been helped by Doors of Change. And so, this year alone, we housed 339 youth. That's a lot of youth in 1 year to house, and to find partners that have housing. And but I can't really comment on the social media other than a lot of youth find us from social media and approach us so we can help them.
And I'm going to bring in Rick. Rick was a member of Mensa. He's part of our team, but he also, back in the day, was on the Jimmy Kimmel show and has definitely done a number of other things in the celebrity space and is one of your fellow Californians and all along those lines. But Rick, I know that you've even talked about some of the things that you've seen with the homeless when you've gone out and about, and you just recently came back from a trip to Europe where you were visiting your daughter and her fiance and watching her, I believe, graduate and all along those lines. But Rick, you've heard Jeffrey talking about what Doors of Change.
Yeah, so Jeffrey, thank you for your work. This is the first time I heard that 4.2 million homeless youth statistic, and it's kind of shameful that I've never heard that before, because we hear all sorts of statistics about the millions of undocumented immigrants coming over our border. This seems like an even more serious problem than that. I live in LA, which is said to have more homeless people than any other city in the US, at least 66,000. But I'm not sure that it includes a lot of the people you're serving and you're talking about. When you say homeless youth, you're talking people 17 to 25?
Yes, Rick, it's amazing that it's one of the most unkept secrets that people don't have any clue there's homeless kids out there. Again, they never hear about them. And that's why the biggest thing that we do, and we found that to get help from the community when we educate them about the homeless youth issue. And they say to me, for 22 years, I had no idea there's this many kids that are on the streets. They're kind of like, shoved under the rug. You don't hear about them, but they are there. And people are always saying, how do we help the homeless? It starts with the youth. If you can get the kids helped that are 17 to 25 and break the cycle of homelessness, you're going to have a lot less adults in the future that are homeless. And it's a very constructive way of doing it, because once these kids trust you, they want to get help. They want to get off the streets. They don't want to be on the streets. And so we're experts in creating trust very quickly. And by the way, the 4.2 number, I got that this month on HUD. It was on the HUD website. It talked about 4.2 million homeless youth between 17 and 25 in America today.
And where are some of these youth also being?
I clicked on it, and there's another, say, 1.6 million homeless children above and beyond so it seems like a serious problem. It seems like what you're doing, what you said, that if once people are homeless for years at a time, that they become more intractable because they develop psychological problems or dependencies, PTSD. And what this makes me, I'm a liberal, and what this makes me think is that, we need to vote for people who will do something about this. That I'm sure that you got housing insecurity. So when you say homelessness, I think you're probably talking about not only people who are homeless all the time, but people who are like couch surfing or just moving from place to place, trying to go to school while living in their car, all that stuff. Various states with Democratic legislatures and governors try to get kids fed in school with, free lunch, free breakfast for all kids in the state, which is a fairly cheap program to do. But red states like to show how tough they are, and they legislate against it. Anyway, what all this makes me think is we need to elect compassionate people who are interested in actually solving problems.
Yes.
And along those same lines, just really quickly, Jeffrey, just one of the things I was curious about is a lot of people will be like, I don't see these youth. And I know that sometimes even here in Durham, they might be in the libraries. They might be in a number of other places. You even mentioned, and Rick did, about them couch surfing. That's the word I was looking for, couch surfing, and all along those lines. So I was just wondering, to those folks that say, I don't see these youth, how do you let them know that this is such a big issue? Even to what Rick just said, because a lot of people will see the kids and the families crossing the border, but they'll be like, 4.2 million. Yeah, I've seen one or two youth in my library, and I don't know whether they're homeless. I don't know whether they're out there or not, but they might have a home. They might not have a home. So how do we let people know how much of an issue this is, and how do folks recognize when they see people that are homeless youth? Because I think a lot of times people will see a kid that is maybe a little bit not engaged or not involved with their community, and they will just assume that they are from a dysfunctional home. And I know even in some of your statistics, you talk about those dysfunctional homes, but they won't talk about the fact that they are actually homeless and all along those lines. So how do we let folks know and recognize when we see homeless people, whether that's here in North Carolina where I am, whether that's in California where you and Rick are, or even in other parts of the world? Because I don't think that this is just a national issue. I would argue it's probably a world issue as well. But I just wanted your thoughts on how we can recognize the homeless kids when we see them.
Well, number one, many times you will not, because these kids look like normal kids. They're very proud. They're not like the bag people, the cart people, like the adults that have the carts. These kids have a nice outfit, and that's all they have. And so you'll see them sometimes they look a little dirty. You look at their clothes, they're a little dirty. They have a backpack. Sometimes they have a sleeping bag. That is one of the ways that when you see a backpack or a sleeping bag, that's when you can start thinking maybe these kids might be homeless. But they're very proud. They don't want people to know that they're homeless. And that's why they look like normal kids. And you need a trained eye like, the people that are on our staff to know that this kid is probably homeless. If you just, a layman looks at you, you probably won't have any idea because they, again, look very similar to a normal kid. They're very proud. They don't want people to know that they're homeless. It's even unsafe when people even know that they're homeless. So they try and hide it. But they are, in fact, homeless. And by the way, San Diego State University, 10% of the students at San Diego State University now are living in their cars.
Wow.
Not only, they couch surf, but they also live in their cars. And one of the things we've done to expand our program, because we continue to look at ways we can help more and more youth, is we actually pay for car repairs. Because if their car does not work, they can't go to work. So if their transmission goes, we'll help fix their transmission. If a battery fails because they're using their batteries so much because they're sleeping in their car, they're using their cell phones to their batteries, all this stuff, we will replace their batteries. We'll do what we can so they will have the ability to work so they can get off the streets. But that's just one of the ways that we've expanded our services during COVID.
Yeah, and along those same lines and everything, I know here in North Carolina and even in Virginia and other places, there is always conversations around tent cities and a number of these tent cities where some of these kids and young adults live at as well. So I just wondered, and sometimes the governments, sometimes it's Republican, sometimes even Democratic governors will try to, and mayors will try to get rid of these tent cities. But I was wondering your take on these tent cities, because this is a problem throughout the United States. And so you'll also see people that are living underneath overpasses, bridge overpasses, and things along those lines. But I was just wondering your take on that and how you reach out to the kids that are living in these tent cities or under the bridge overpasses and things along those lines.
That's a great question. Number one, most of the youth do not want to be in the tent city area because there are mostly adults there. And the adults will take advantage of the kids. They'll rape them, they'll molest them, they'll beat them up. So the kids do not like to hang out with adults. They try and stay on their own. And with COVID, they've really gone underground. They really hide. So they do hide under streets, under and ravines and stuff like that. But they don't, the normal tent cities are 99% of those are adults, and they do not want to mix with adults because they get beat up and taken advantage of by the adults. So they're really on their own. That's why it's so crucial. We go on outreach 4 days a week looking for youth. And because of COVID, they've really spread out tremendously. They don't want to be close to each other because they're afraid they're going to catch COVID from another youth, and they could die because they have, very compromised immune systems, and they're not vaccinated, most of these youth. So they really are, they really are an accident waiting to happen, and that's why they've kind of gone more on their own, and they spread out. But having these posters that I showed you, so many youth see these posters all around the town, and they call us and ask for help. And so, again, this is one way that people say, listen, I'm touched by this. I had no idea. What can I do to help? Go to doorsofchange.org. And even though we do this in San Diego, these kids come from all over the country in San Diego and Los Angeles because they're better weather than, back east right now. And so even though we're in San Diego, you're helping kids all over the United States that come out west to, get out of the cold. And so we help them from, it doesn't matter where they come from, we help them. And so I hope and pray that someone's touched by this and you actually take action. If you don't take action, feeling bad about this is not going to do a damn bit of good. You have to take action. And one of the ways of doing that is join our angel team for $11 a month or $18 a month. It's very little, but again, over the month, over the year, it's $175. It makes a difference. We can help more and more kids get the services they need, mental health services, health care, get them housing, get them to be self-sufficient with jobs and trades so they can be productive citizens. That's how you solve this.
So what other organizations are you working with? Because you say you've housed 2,800 kids, but that's not even 1/10 of 1% of the 4.2 million you're talking about.
Yes, that's in San Diego. And there's many other organizations in your community around the country. Because of the 4.2 million, there's many organizations that work with homeless kids. I would Google who's doing, who's working with homeless youth in your community in Durham and all over the country, and support those organizations. Help them, give them donations so they can help more kids. This is a big problem that many people, thank God, are working on to solve.
And along those same lines and same everything, is Doors of Change just a regional organization in the California area, or is there plans to expand it to other cities and other areas? Because I do know that even here in Durham, we've got an organization that deals a lot with adults, some that are in that age range, some that are older, that are folks that are recovering. And there's a program called TROSA that is about folks that are under substance abuse and are trying to recover, and all on those lines. And they have everything from a Christmas tree program to helping people move to even doing some of the tech work or some of the backbreaking work, or like the roadie work for some of our festivals here, and all along those lines. But they definitely have some people that are involved in the youth space. They even have a band that plays around as well. So they do a number of things, and some of them are in that age range that you're talking about. I know that there is Spirit House here in Durham as well that does some work with youth that are in that teenage to young adult space. But I was just wondering, are there plans to expand?
Well, we are busy enough in San Diego. However, we have no problem if Durham has a program they want to call us. We'll share with them what we do. They're going to have to do all the work in their community, but we're very open with sharing our ideas of what we've done because they work. They're very successful, and we have no problem with sharing. Listen, do this, do this, do this, and let them do their work in their community. And so that's how that goes. We've helped already Philadelphia, Buffalo, New York, and Chicago. We've mentored people in those communities that have nonprofits that work with homeless youth and shared our ideas with them. We have no problem sharing our ideas because we're not trying to hide it. We want to give it away for free. They're going to have to do the work, though, in their community.
Yep. Why doesn't this get more attention on a national level? Why isn't this part of some national conversation where it shows up on, the national news? The CNNs, the MSNBC, Fox News.
That's a great question, Rick. I wish and pray that it does more and more. You see it every once in a while, but again, there's most of the focus in our country is on the adults that are homeless. It's on the vets that are homeless. It's on the families that are homeless. You rarely ever hear about the youth that are homeless, but it's a big issue. And again, it's the issue is that set of homelessness will help get less in the future for the adults, because if you can take care of them and get them off the streets, it's going to be one of the ways to solve the homeless problem in America today.
And if you do the math, 10%, 4.2 million is about 10% of the youth population. You're saying 1 kid in 10 in America has housing insecurity.
Correct. That is correct. And that's from HUD. That just came out recently, and I got the information to Harlan. That is a HUD statistic, and the government statistic. And so, and there's truthfully, there might even be more than that, because that's what they feel. But there's kids that they don't see, so it could be more than that.
And along those same lines, I was just wondering, because one of the things that I remember people used to talk about is this notion, you kind of alluded to it, Jeffrey, of people that are kind of hidden underneath. Because I remember that was part of the theme of even some of these movies where people are living in New York in the subways and in the tunnels and places like that. So I was just wondering, is there a lot of people that we don't see because they are hidden underneath sight? I mean, we don't really have subways here in Durham, North Carolina, but I do know that there are people that are oftentimes just getting around on our mass transit, because there's even been notices I've seen where people will be realizing that people are literally taking the bus around the city constantly and not really going to any destination. They're just using it as a way to have the conversation and everything. So I just wondering your thoughts around that.
Yeah, these kids, as I say, are hidden. They're hidden by, they want to be hidden. They don't want to be found, because if they are found, they're going to be taken advantage of by an adult usually. And so, one of the ways that I tell people to help people is keep apples and water in your car, bottles of water. And if you see like a homeless, what you think might be a homeless kid, go up to him and say, "Would you like this?" And just by giving them an apple or giving them water, that's something to help them, keep so that they're going to be better nourished, and then, or buy them, a sandwich. Get them a sandwich. You don't want to give them money because they have to go to drugs or alcohol possibly, but if you give them food, that will help them at least eat.
How many people are in your organization? How many people are in Doors of Change?
Well, we have about 6 or 8 full-time staff. We've got several volunteers, and again, this is we want to get more. We have 2 full-time case managers. We want to get a 3rd full-time case manager because we're seeing about over 100 kids right now, and we need to have, to help more kids. We need more money to be able to do that. And so we're a grassroots organization. Our budget is $600,000 a year. It's not a lot. It's not a big organization. However, we've done a tremendous amount with that money because there's nothing wasted. It's gone to fund the program, the staff, to get these kids better services so they can get off the streets.
Just really quickly, hold on a second, Rick. I just want to introduce Jeffrey to one of the founders of the network, Kim Calhoun, who is very much interested in this issue. She's actually worked with some youth as well as some folks that are in that whole domestic violence situation as well. So this is definitely an issue that she is passionate about. I don't think that I'm speaking out of school by saying that and all along those lines. So it's definitely an issue that she is very passionate about, and she's here in North Carolina. Rick's actually there in California. But I was wondering, just as and Kim may have a question for you as well. Are you reaching out to any of the newer celebrities? You mentioned some of the celebrities that are out there, and I'm thinking there's a major event that's going to take place next Sunday, and a lot of people will be paying attention, whether we want to or not, to the whole Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce romance and everything. So I was wondering whether it's a Taylor Swift or a Beyonce or a Jay-Z, if there are any of the more modern celebrities that you are reaching out to as well, and if so, if you're having any luck getting them involved as well.
Well, we're very blessed to have Anson Williams, who was Patsy on Happy Days. It's their 50th anniversary this year. Anson has been doing a lot of interviews with me, and Lucy Arnaz, who is Lucille Ball's daughter. She's been helping me and do a lot of interviews with me over the last year and a half. And we're so blessed to have these kind of celebrities because people will listen to them and they're touched by us. And so thank God that they're helping us. As far as, we've had Robin Williams helped us, Billy Crystal's helped us, Seinfeld's helped us. So we're blessed to have, these celebrities that trust us and help us so we can get more kids, a better life for themselves. But it has to do with trust. Because again, very few people trust it in America, and they've been taken advantage of. And so thank God we have a track record. We have 22 years, over 22 years of getting kids off the streets. And that's why Anson, that's why Lucy, that's why, Seinfeld signed stuff for us several times. We're very blessed to have them involved with us.
Just really quickly, and like I said, Kim's probably got a question for you as well. One of the things that we've talked about on this network and just in general is this division in society. And there are definitely division, whether it's around orientation, whether it's around race, whether it's around gender and everything. So I was wondering, how much is that playing a part in the homeless youth conversation as well? Because I'm imagining that some of these youth some of them are coming from what people used to call I'm trying to think of the name, but it was the kids, the dreamers. Some of them might have been dreamers that are out of the Hispanic community, and definitely probably African Americans. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, there are a number of them that are part of the LGBT community and all along those lines. So how much is this division that people keep talking about in the United States, and actually Rick alluded to it as well, playing a part in this conversation with our young people?
Well, the LGBTQ section, which takes a lot of people right now, is 40% of the youth that are homeless in America are LGBTQ+. That's huge because just from them coming out and telling their parents, they kick them on the streets. One of my first kids I worked with, Joseph, his dad was a Baptist minister. And as soon as he heard that his kid was gay, he literally threw him out of the house within 10 minutes, did not give him any money, did not give him any clothes, any food, and he had to have survival sex. And he was an African-American kid. Within 2 hours, he had survival sex with a 40-year-old white male to get $10 to go on a trolley to get to the shelter. I mean, it's disgusting. And so just by being gay and coming out, their parents today, in 2024, kicked them out of the house. And that's a huge problem still in America today.
Yeah. Kim, any thoughts? You've been hearing some of this
Well,
conversation.
before we do, I think Rick had something that he was in the middle of saying. So go
Yeah.
ahead, Rick.
Is there a national umbrella organization? Because you're regional, you're down in San Diego. And
Yes.
Is there some national organization that coordinates the efforts of all the regional people like you?
You know, Rick, I don't know of any. I'm sure that there's some national organizations that work on it that deal with homelessness as far as they statistically measure what's going on, whatever. But I don't know of one specific organization that ties to all of us. No, I don't.
I've helped a few homeless children, taken in a few. A lot of times, like you said, the parents just throw in the towel with them. There's so much tension. The kids don't abide by whatever rules they have in the house because they're trying to spread their wings. And I will say my last one was a young girl. Most of the time we have boys, and she was a handful, but I love her dearly. If she's watching, she knows. But they clean up if they're given some structure. Let them have their wings a little bit, and slowly clip them. These kids have got to grow just like you and I did, and I've found that that's one of the biggest problems. Is a lot of the parents, not it's not the only, but a lot of the parents just don't want to deal with the kids growing. They think, well, I'm here. They forget that they probably went through the same things, or they don't want you to go through the same things. But every human being has to stretch and grow and fly. And I think that I agree with you, especially with the children who are gay. If you're in the Southeast, that can be a death sentence to you, not just by your family, but by the communities. And Mark is nodding his head, right? That is so true, that so many people can get beaten to death around here, and the police, unfortunately, just won't do everything that they should to seek justice on those. So I think that one, the laws need to change and quit being so biased against people and just become more humanity. I think that we need to open up doors a little bit more to children, but also I think that they have too much idle time at home, the ones that are thrown out of their home. And I think they need more structure in school. And I'm not talking about religious structure. I mean, put them to work in school, make them grow gardens, the food that they eat at school, make them participate in helping younger children, mentorship programs. And then as far as you're talking about, one of the things I love what you're saying, I always carry water. My kids will say I always have fruit in the car, snack bars. Okay. But you don't know if some are allergic to things, but I always have snack bars. But recently during the winter months, I saw a post, and somebody, because you can go to the dollar store here and pick them up for little or nothing, hats and gloves and scarves. And they put them in a little Ziploc bag. And we go out, and, if I see someone, I will just I've given them scarves off of my neck because they're cold. And if they're given, some people are just given a little bit of help or just consideration, they might pull through. You just never know. But we have to be humane about it. And in many cases, we're not. And drug addiction is another problem on the streets. We have to get it off the streets. We're not doing enough. We're banning it in the wrong places, and we're arresting the wrong people. So I think that we need to home in on our policies for how we're going to control that. And just, I think if our children had more things that they had to do in education and in their school, and their hands are kept busy, there's less opportunity for them to fall into that trouble. As for the other situations, like because they're, gay, or, maybe there's just a bad family life, we need to get word out there, like the sign of help me, right? We need to get the word out there where they can go to safely. If they have a phone, they can call, right? a hashtag or something, a helpline of some kind that they can reach out to and say, I'm on the streets. I have nowhere to go. Can you help me get to a shelter? And I think that there are plenty of people, we can make deals with Uber, we can make deals with Lyft and reach out and help get them from point A to point B without them having to do sex exchange, which is disgusting. It's disgusting that people take advantage of people like that. But I see it every day. As a widow, I see how people take advantage or try to take advantage of people and their delicate situations. And these children deserve better. They didn't deserve to be brought into this life to be shoved aside. They deserve better.
Yeah, and along those same lines,
Especially with pro-lifers. I think pro-lifers need to step up to the plate.
along those same lines and everything, Jeffrey, I was just curious your thoughts about something that I know a lot of people are concerned about, because some of the people are thinking that some of these kids could have come out of the foster and the adoption system and all along those lines, whether they should go into the foster or adoption system. But I was just wondering your take on that, because my brother had some foster kids. I don't think he has any right now, but I know that some of those kids were definitely, as Kim just said, it can be a handful, because I remember one that was a handful that my mom had to put in check because she was bringing her boyfriend around, and they were probably in that same age range that you're dealing with. I want to say they were like 16, 17, 18, and they were being a little bit rambunctious and a little bit not following the law from the adults. And so mom had to put them in check and everything. And even here in Durham, I know a lot of people are concerned that the kids don't have, and Kim kind of alluded to it, enough things to do. So like I said, we do have a skate park here, but there's a number of folks that are thinking that there aren't enough things for the kids and particularly young adults to do, because a lot of entertainment is geared toward older adults or is geared toward folks that are not necessarily in that young adult space and everything. So I was just wondering your thoughts about that, even there in California, if there are enough activities for the kids to do, and does your organization take those kids to some of those activities if they're not able to get to them? Because I know San Diego is a very big city, so I'm wondering that they might not have access to get to some of the things, whether it's a skate park or whether it's a roller derby or whether it's a whatever. So I was wondering if that's something that your organization does, is try to make some of these things available, and is there enough available even in your area?
Well, the kids that we work with are on survival mode.
Right.
They're just surviving. And so the best way we can help them, the best way your listeners can help them, is to fund a case manager that will actually work with each individual kid and get them the resources that they need to get off the streets, number one, and teach them how to be self-sufficient. So we can teach them trades. We can get them back into school. We can do different things and teach them, a mentorship. Teach them how to do things so they can start making money for themselves and get off the streets and stay off the streets. Just getting off the streets is one thing, but staying off the streets is a second thing. And that's why if people are touched, please make a donation so we can fund more case managers to get this help that each of these kids needs, individual needs. Everybody is different. They all have different needs, depending on how emotionally stable they are, the mental illness, and all the different factors that come around. That, yes, we get the kids, we get them, music to them, other things to them. But the most important thing is giving them the tools to help them get off the streets, stay off the streets, become self-sufficient, so they can be role models for other youth to follow, because the youth will see these kids that are succeeding. We have many of them have succeeded, and they become role models for the other youth because they don't think they can do it. And by seeing someone that succeeded being a homeless youth and now getting full-time work, now one of our kids just graduated law school, she is a tremendous asset because she now is a role model for thousands of kids to say, listen, I can do what Justine did. If she can do it, I can do it. So that's why if you're touched, please take action so you can actually help more kids have a better life. And remember, even though you're in Durham, a lot of these kids from the east come out west because it's warmer to live all year round. And yes, we have kids from all over the country in San Diego.
Yes, really
You
quick.
bring up a huge issue with getting help for homeless people, which is we've learned that the best way to help homeless is working with them one-on-one, because as you said, they're individuals with individual problems. And that's just a huge stumbling block to getting people help, because there aren't enough people to help all the people who need help. And it seems like you need to increase awareness. So, like, I don't think most of the kids and youth in the US realize that 1 in 10 of them has housing insecurity. And if there was more, I tend to look at technology as to, like, what problem it is. It's changing everything. It's causing problems. It also has the potential for creating solutions. And it seems like there needs to be more awareness of this on social media so that people can form networks to help people at risk.
Yeah. And along
Well,
those same lines,
what I find is more people are more interested in abortion and anti-abortion and saving that child to bring it into a world that it's not really wanted, than they are about the child after the life is born and they're starving. But one of the things I've learned working with David M. Walker and some of our team here is sometimes we need to start in, when they're younger, and giving them the opportunity to go to the schools and say, here are some options. Like, one of the schools a friend of mine works at is a poverty school. Believe it or not, they're not intermixed anymore. And majority of the kids don't have snacks throughout the day. They need to eat. Some don't even have lunch. Some don't have a coat for the winter. We have very cold, harsh winters here, or gloves. And so, one of the teachers reached out to her community just to help her children. And so, of course, we all chip in. I don't even have kids in grade school anymore, or school, but we're all chipping in to help these children, because they didn't have these things, and they should. But what I'm finding a problem with is our policies are pushing all these anti-abortion laws, but nobody's putting money into taking care of these children. And maybe we need to go to Washington and shove this under their nose with the statistics of how many children. Yeah. Rick, will you go with me?
I would do that. People have a limited amount of shelf space in their brains for issues to be concerned about. And if you got loudmouth lunatics on both sides. No, I'm saying, like, if people's brains are just stuffed full of immigration, abortion, there's no room for, like, actual millions of people suffering with this issue. You have to increase awareness. You got to shoehorn this into people's brains as something for them to be concerned about.
But Rick, along those same lines, and I'd love to hear Jeffrey's thoughts about this, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, in about 10 days or about 11 days, there will be a major event that everybody will have their eyes glued to, not just here, but around the world. And there are a number of things that are going on. I want to say that the Olympics are going on right now, but I was actually referring to the Super Bowl and everything. So, and this is a question for Jeffrey. I don't know, have you ever thought about reaching out or doing those kind of events that are those big events where people are able to see it in front of millions and everything? And I know those commercials are very expensive, so I know that they are not easy to do, but sometimes even in your own area, because I remember a friend of mine here in Durham did a commercial that was based in Durham doing Super Bowl about 5 or 6 years ago, but it was shown mostly in the local market, but was a Super Bowl commercial during the game and everything. And that was done several years back. So sometimes even the local provider can do some advertising as well. And this doesn't cost.
I just looked it up. The cost of a 30-second Super Bowl ad this year is $7 million, which is about 12 times.
That would not be the cost of a local ad, because what Dilsey and my friend did was.
No, but you guys are missing out, because I worked the NFL Super Bowl for projects, and they do have charitable project programs. You just have to get connected to the right place. They do mostly just sponsor one that they do themselves, but they do allow an open door to a justifiable cause. You just have to get your foot in the door pretty much almost in June to be there at the Super Bowl, because we did this with, Chess for Children and things like that. So we'll put you in, connection with some of those people, or try to. That those names rotate a lot. But my concern too is a question I just posted is how many of the children, these are stats that need to be driven home in Washington. How many of these children become a part of the sex trade, and can you collaborate with the anti-sex trade groups that I have worked with over the years? There's a big one in Houston. There's a big one down in Florida. But these anti-sex trade groups, they know that a lot of the homeless children become part of the sex trade programs. So maybe we need to get the stats, die hard 100% stats. And I bet Rick would go with me. Mark would probably go, but let's go to Washington and put this under their nose.
Sure.
Let's all go.
Yeah, in the general population, more than one woman in 4 is sexually assaulted at some point in her life, and one male in 10. But among these homeless or housing insecure people, that number has to be way over half, more than 3/4, I would guess, because it's not always directly prostitution. It's sexual coercion. You go with somebody creepy because they offer a place to live, and you kind of semi-unwillingly, engage in stuff, and that stuff will wreck you for life.
Just
I'll
really quick,
bring a woman on who suffered greatly. She's a famous celebrity.
The thing is that what can people now do that are listening to your broadcast? What can they do to make a difference? And yes, there is survival sex on majority of the kids that are on the streets. They need the money to eat, to live, whatever. But the biggest thing is that if you pay professionals, case managers, people that are in social work that we work with, that can actually work with these kids one by one, we can take them off the streets. One by one, we can get them the help that they need. We can only do that if people give us money. Because, it costs money to hire social workers. It costs money to hire case managers, which are the key to this. And so if someone's touched, go to doorsofchange.org. Doors is plural. And make a donation of any amount, whether it's $10, $100. If enough people from this, just alone listening to this, do it, we'll be able to feed kids for a week or 2 weeks and get them the skills and the service they need to have a better life. And I really appreciate the opportunity to increase the visibility about this issue. And that's we do it one interview at a time, getting it out there to the public, because the public wants to help if they're educated on this. They have no idea of the severity of the homeless youth issue. So I really appreciate your station allowing us to speak about this.
No problem. And just really quickly, as we're getting ready to wind down and everything, but I was just wondering, and I know that Sasha was here in the background and was out of Canada, and he'll be doing his modern investment show, and I don't know if it's an issue in Canada as much, and I don't know if he wants to jump on or not, just to have a quick question for you and everything. But if not, is there any, because we also have a bookstore and everything, are there any books that either you or other people connected with Doors of Change have put out that talk about this issue? Because if so, we can definitely get it on our bookstore that we have as well, to make sure that we continue this conversation. Of course, this interview will be run several times during the course of the week and even the month, so hopefully you'll get some donations from that as well. But I was wondering whether it's you, Jeffrey, or other people that are associated, are there any books that have come out that you have written or others have written about this particular issue or Doors of Change in general?
Yes, there's definitely books that are out written about it. One of them is My Way Home by Michael Gauldn. That's one of the ones that's written about growing up homeless in America today. We're so busy helping these kids. We don't have time to write books, but there's people that have been homeless that, gotten off the streets are writing books. And so I would Google, homelessness, homeless youth in America, and you'll be able to find books about that. But again, go to our website. You can educate yourself. There's a lot of videos. There's a lot of interviews of the youth. The youth are speaking and share their success stories, how they've gone from the streets to becoming lawyers, how they come from the streets, being one of our youth was Employee of the Year at Petco Park in front of 25,000 people. So there's a lot on the internet. If you just Google homeless youth and success, it'll come up.
Well, I appreciate it. Jeffrey, you've been a great guest. I've appreciated your bringing light to this issue. It is a very important issue. And like I said, I've seen some of these youth right here in Durham as well as other parts of North Carolina. And we've got a show that deals with the Hispanic population that is called K Pasa that airs on Sunday. And the woman that runs that show, Viviana, is a tutor there in Virginia. So I know she'll be interested in this issue. And we've also got a show that is on Sunday as well called Where's the Love, that is about bullying. So we've definitely, and another show that's called that's with a spinoff of that. I'm trying to remember the title of that, but it is about African American conversations and some of the things that go on, including some people that are in that space. So it's about male bonding and all along those lines. But they definitely have some coaches and others that are involved. So I'll be sure to pass on your information and definitely try to get you some more support, because as Rick said, it is an issue that we're not hearing enough about, and it needs to be spread more and everything. So I was glad to get you on, and I'll definitely be keeping in touch with you, and hopefully we'll get you back on this show and other shows so we can continue this conversation and more conversations like it. But we're going to end World Edition for today, but I thoroughly enjoyed having you as a guest, and you brought some great insights, and I appreciate some of the questions that both Rick and Kim asked you as well. But I hope that this will get you some of the support that you need. So any last words that you want to share before I hit the Pod TV store and our outro and everything along those lines? But any words that you want to share? And like I said, I greatly appreciated your helping us learn more about this important issue.
I just want to say thank you for listening, and I appreciate, that people that are listening that are touched by this, and hopefully you'll move to action so we'll be able to get more kids the life that they deserve and that they can be proud of with hard work. They have to work hard at this, but if they work hard, they will be successful. And I really appreciate your organization letting us get the word out. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Doorsofchange.org. Thank you so much.
No problem. Like I said, we'll have the bookstore and then our outro. Hopefully I'll see Rick tomorrow. I think we got another guest that'll be dealing with the military and some of the things going on in the more world side of stuff. But he is an author as well. But we're going to get on out of here. But great having this conversation. And I do agree it's an issue that we need to be paying more attention to all along those lines. So Jeffrey, you were an amazing guest, and we're going to get on out of here.
Thank you so much.